Hello there. Welcome to Binging the Force, put on by the Rocky Mountain Fan Force, a Denver fan group, Star Wars fan group. So glad you could join us today. What this video podcast is all about is we are going to be watching Star Wars and having some fun with it, doing some commentary. And so you'll be joined by members of the Rocky Mountain Fan Force while we do this. So let's go around and introduce ourselves. We're here in our first episode.
Michael, the man in the chair, so I'll be the one kind of doing the kind of producing, and I'll be the one pressing stuff at the wrong time and doing weird stuff and getting stuff wrong. So, but I'm excited to be doing it.
I'm Linda. I'm forced to be here through marriage vows, but I do love all the movies and been watching the shows, and we'll bring some of that newbie energy.
Hello, I'm Dale, and I am so excited to be binging the Force with you.
In his man cave.
Right.
Not a still image. That is an actual room that he's in there.
Yeah, I can't just sit in a closet or under the covers watch Star Wars.
You didn't do this for this episode. Like, this is your house. You live there.
Yes. You may say house. You may say toy museum. Whatever.
It's a toy chest that has people happen to live in it.
Yes. It's no longer a guest bedroom. That is for darn sure. So.
All those guests behind you are permanent residents.
Right. The only way you could sleep in here is, I guess I could bust out the Tauntaun sleeping bag. There's a little space for that. But no full-size beds.
Hi, I'm James. Thanks for joining us. This is where us friends and family, Star Wars friends and family, get together and talk about Star Wars.
Excellent. And I'm Jonathan. I am with Linda. I'm the one who did the forcing there as part of the marriage vows. And then I've been a part of the Rocky Mountain Fan Force for way too long. So I appreciate you guys joining us here for this. We're actually going to start in our first episode, binging. And so we may kind of skip around a little bit, but we're still figuring out our format. But we know that things that will be part of this format: Star Wars, friends, and fun. So for our first episode, we're going to be tackling episode 1 of Tales of the Jedi. So if you have not seen it before, go watch it real quick. Thank you for coming back after watching it. And now you'll get to hear us just kind of doing some commentary about that first episode. So Michael, we are ready when you are.
Okay, I started the video.
Is this something that was released as a show?
Yes, this is a limited series that came up on Disney Plus. Only 6 episodes, and it's really episodes that give a lot of background that kind of fill in gaps, specifically about a lot of the Jedis that we know and have seen, but we really mostly focused on 2. 3 episodes were specifically on Count Dooku, and 3 episodes on Ahsoka.
So in this one, it looks like this is like the earliest part of the Star Wars timeline that you get to see on screen. So this is about 60. I think you said 60 years before that.
60 BBY. And for those who don't know BBY and ABY, BBY is before the Battle of Yavin. Star Wars dates are either before or after the battle with the Death Star at the end of the first Star Wars movie, Episode 4. So we are 50 to 60 years before that, and we're seeing very young Qui-Gon Jinn as the apprentice to Count Dooku.
Right. I'm wondering what age he's supposed to be here. Maybe not an adult. He's obviously still a Padawan, but he's not too young. He doesn't have the Jedi braid, and he doesn't look like a kid.
Yeah,
he looks pretty
I think he's
20 years old.
I think he's a full Jedi at that point, because I mean, if episode 1 is like 32 BBY, and he's probably got to be 50s there, maybe late 50s, maybe early 60s.
Sure, for Obi-Wan
however old Liam Neeson was around that time, So this would be 20 to 30 years before that. So he's in his 20s.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a neat thing they did for this this episode is Liam Neeson's son does a voice work for some of the scenes, and then Liam Neeson himself provides that dialogue for the older Qui-Gon.
And unfortunately, Christopher Lee's not around to do Count Dooku. I mean, one of the best actors ever. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't a role that really got fleshed out a lot in the movie. So I mean, it seemed like either there was more that got cut out of episodes, kind of 2 and 3, because he didn't get a lot of screen time. You really don't get to know a lot about him. So these 3 episodes really flesh out the character a lot more. So Linda, Count Dooku was the older Jedi who had betrayed the Jedi, and we first encountered him in episode 2 as the bad guy's apprentice, basically as kind of the main Sith apprentice at that point. These 3 episodes kind of tell us how he went from one of the most respected, revered Jedis to becoming, leaving the Order, betraying the Order, and becoming a Sith Lord at that point.
And also, go ahead.
Did we know he was previously a Jedi during episode 2?
Yeah, well, they always referred to him as someone who had betrayed the Order, so he had been a respected Jedi. Here, they're on a mission. It's I believe a high official had been captured. Right, it was like the governor had been kidnapped or something, and so the Jedi have been sent to find out what the deal is and potentially rescue the governor. So they're
Senator's son, I think, right?
Senator, yeah. So he just said, he's one of the longest standing senators. So the senator from this area had been captured, and they get to the village, and they realize that the people in the village are really they're not bad people. They're downtrodden people. They're like poor people who have basically had all their resources stolen away from them by the senator and by the ruling people, basically by the rich. And so, what he eventually finds out here is that, he has not been taken. They basically it was a defensive thing by the people to try to, get some of the resources back and to be able to survive.
Yeah, and this series is, one of the many that Dave Filoni has created. So it's some of the characters he loved. He brought back voice actors that were in previous shows that he's done, like Rebels and Clone Wars, and it's a great way to kind of add more of his flavor of Star Wars to this, right? So I really appreciate, Lucasfilm still giving him the reins to be able to put together shows like this.
Yeah.
And the title there was Justice. I mean, the idea here is we're seeing the evolution of Count Dooku didn't just snap his fingers and went from a good guy to a bad guy. I mean, there was an evolution there. He was a well-respected, member of the Jedi. I don't
Debonair
council or not, but I mean, starting off here, I mean, he at this point still really believes in the Jedi and still really believes in the Republic.
Right.
Yeah, and it's got kind of the flavors of prequel stuff here with like the characters, these kind of situations and the droids, talking about senators and Republic and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't have the same kind of like tone and style as the prequels as well. Like, and a lot of these Tales of Jedi shows, it looks very dark and moralistic and almost like something from like Amazing Stories type style from the 80s when I was a kid watching that show, that kind of quick slice that has that Star Wars flavor, but also a morality tale attached to it, like Filoni likes to do.
And I definitely needed to rewatch this because I'm now realizing that it's the senator's son who has been kidnapped, and basically the captors are showing him what their world is like. I mean, and in the dialogue there it says, he's like, I didn't realize how bad these people were off. From him being a rich kid, being raised as a senator's son all his life and being part of the ruling class, he had no idea what these people were going through. And he now, like, being their prisoner, I mean, he's now gotten a much greater sense of what struggles they have, what problems they have. And so, through him and through just standing there and being there, Dooku is realizing that as well. And now they're confronted by, even though they've been sent, to try to resolve the situation as Jedi, the senator has shown up with his own army, basically.
I do like the animation model for Dooku, like a younger Christopher Lee.
Yeah. Yeah, and he thinks, the senator just assumes, they're his to order. These are criminals, arrest them. And Jedi are like, we kind of think for ourselves. I mean, we serve the Senate. I mean, we serve the government, but we are independent thinking beings. The Jedi have their own thoughts and feelings about things.
Mhm.
And he's like, well, I'm not going to just do what you tell me to do because you told me to do it.
Mhm.
And of course,
The Senator soldiers' uniforms look like they should be in a marching band.
I'm thinking more kind of British soldiers around the time of the occupation of India.
Yeah, turn of the century or
basically,
imperial. Yeah.
I think an analogy here would be kind of India, early 20th century, late 19th century, because that's kind of what those uniforms look like.
Yeah.
Kind of like from Zulu Dawn or whatever that movie was back in the day.
Yes, African countries. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the senator for representing the people, but it's basically this invading force compared to the people who are there, right?
And the Jedi who have been sent to deal with the situation and who serve the Senate, I mean, he's about to fire on them because they're not doing exactly what he told them to do.
Yeah.
So these guys are just the senator's personal guards or whatever, right? This isn't official Republic troops, right?
No, yeah, I think they're his. They're from this planet or his people or whatever. His
they're his guards.
Guards.
Yeah, his kind of personal army.
Yep, who just started attacking Jedi, I mean, in his mind, it's like he's attacking the kidnappers and he's attacking the Jedi who are now siding with the kidnappers.
Right. Yeah. If you think back to the line from the prequels, where Mace Windu says, "We're keepers of the peace, not soldiers." Well, we got to see an entire series, the Clone Wars, spend a decade showing them as soldiers. Yeah. So this is a little bit more of that keepers of the peace idea, which kicks off in Phantom Menace. Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon are there for negotiations. They're not there to start some shit with the Neimoidians. They're there to keep the peace.
Yeah.
Yep. They serve peace. They serve justice. They don't serve the Senate. The Senate are not their masters per se.
If you read some of the old Republic stuff that they've just come out with, it kind of really goes into how the Jedi, were very much about. They weren't an army really. They were sent out to all parts of the galaxy, basically keep peace. Be ambassadors almost.
Oh, dang!
And we're seeing here that Dooku put into this situation of there's the side of the government and what the government is telling him to do, and there's the side of justice and him having to make his own decision. And he kind of started to make his own decision there. I mean, he started strangling the senator, which is definitely not what the Jedi are sent there to do, and not what the Jedi's role had been for a very long time at that point.
Right. Yeah. If we're not counting Luke as having choked the Gamorrean guard, he was just restraining them by the neck, and Anakin choking his wife. Is this the first time we've seen a Jedi choke someone?
Yeah, I think maybe
it's open to interpretation, right?
Yeah, no, because at this point, I mean, he is a mainline, Jedi, and good guy Jedi, and we didn't normally see them do that. I mean, it's something we saw obviously Darth Vader do on a regular basis. He was a Sith at that point. He had turned to the dark side. This is the Jedi who has not turned to the dark side at this point. But we are starting to see the pathway to there, and that's kind of what we're getting here is kind of that flavor of what brings him there. And this is clearly it's probably not just 3 incidents, but we're seeing a significant incident that kind of started that pathway for him to say I'm having to rethink everything that I've always believed about both serving the Senate and who the Senate can be, and the Jedi that I've basically served my entire life. Because at this point, we know Jedi are brought in from infancy basically and spend their entire lives in the Jedi. They don't really have lives before that, and so he now is at a point in his life where he's having to rethink all of that.
It was interesting to see how Qui-Gon reacts to this, right? His first instinct was try to stop Count Dooku, but then his second instinct was to free the senator's son, right? Because he realized the only way I can de-escalate this is by freeing this kid, not by trying to stop Dooku.
Right. Yeah, because the last thing he needs to do is confront Dooku. That's the last thing Dooku needs at that point is aggression. He needs to have the situation diffused around him, and that's the role Qui-Gon puts himself into.
Yeah, he's good at that.
Yeah.
Well, I hope to see more about Qui-Gon fleshed out. He didn't really do much for me in episode 1.
Because we got so little time with him, yeah.
Yeah, so I'd love to see other styles.
Yeah. Yeah, and he tells him right here, "You're much wiser than I." And it's like he started to boil over, and Qui-Gon's the one who had to kind of bring him back from the brink there. I mean, he was going to strangle the senator at that point. But
well, you're in luck. There are future Tales of Jedi episodes that do have Count Dooku and Qui-Gon. So.
Yeah, this is the first of 3. That basically explore, that relationship and explore really the import of Qui-Gon and what role he played within the Jedi. I mean, we'll see particularly, I believe, in the 4th episode, which is the last of the Count Dooku ones. We'll get a lot greater sense without actually having Qui-Gon in it of how important he was as a peacemaker, as a true Jedi. Both to Count Dooku and to the Council and to other Jedi around him. How important he was, and how resonates through the loss of him in episode 1 partially leads to a lot of what goes down the line, because a lot of that questions become, how different would everything have been had Qui-Gon actually trained Anakin?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what you guys think of the episode? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, and also, if Dooku,
there are some people who just watch the movies like myself and aren't familiar with all the Old Republic and other shows, and it's got to be, I don't know, frustrating or confusing for you guys if I come in and saying, "Oh, Qui-Gon's such a flat character," and you're like, "But you didn't watch, or you didn't read."
You didn't read this whole novel.
I don't think so, because I think it's a valid point, because we got so little of him. I mean, because for me, I'm not really filling the gaps with books or anything like that. I'm just going by the actual presented, filmed, major stuff. And that's the thing, is Qui-Gon is incredibly important, but you wouldn't necessarily get that, just from episode 1, because he's in there for so little. But that's why I think this show was good, because it really did try to add that flavor and really kind of fill in those gaps and say, okay, these characters who we got very little of, and a lot of the complaints and criticisms of the prequel trilogy is that, you're getting introduced to all these elements that go by so quickly, and for the casual viewer, what the heck was that, And so, at least, I mean, is everyone going to see all the shows on Disney Plus? Not necessarily, but for those who do, it really is fleshing out that world a lot better.
Yeah.
And it's particularly Dave Filoni, really, I'd say, can be credited with saving episodes 1, 2, and 3, and really trying to spend a lot of the Star Wars that he's created making up for the deficiencies story-wise of 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. Dave Filoni and his group, they actually are trying to keep everything kind of logical and everything, and trying to keep everything interconnected, which I think is kind of cool. And you do get a lot, the novels and certain, animated shows, they fill in kind of those gaps, or they tell a backstory of someone. That's kind of why I like them. You get a little more information on them, or you find out what their motives are. Like Count Dooku, he's just this evil guy, right, in the movie. But there's a reason. There's probably a reason, that he, his philosophy changed. And then they start talking about the great Jedi. And I think a lot of Jedis actually have very different approaches and personalities. I think some of them are much more restrained and maybe thoughtful, like Yoda. But then there's kind of rogue ones like Ahsoka. She essentially gets kicked out of the Jedi, right?
I think James Rogue One is a different movie, though we haven't gotten there yet. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think we could talk about the whole context, but
yeah.
But I mean, we only through the movies and the TV shows. I mean, more so from Clone Wars, but I mean, even then, I don't know. I have not seen all of Clone Wars, but I'd say all told, we saw maybe a couple dozen Jedi at best, and there were thousands of Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I really like about Dave Filoni's corner of Star Wars is the storytelling, right? He's focused on characters, character development, seeing what makes them who they are, right? And a lot of the Star Wars movies, it feels like, for as much as I love them, their focus is not on storytelling. Their focus is on, especially the prequels, ships taking off and landing, and seeing vehicles and getting from place to place and making all these things happen, but not necessarily developing characters and stuff. So,
well, they make the Trade Federation to be out this evil entity, right? But there was actually a reason, politically they disagreed, with the Republic. They had a different philosophy on trade and those type of things too. They're just made out to be this evil, robot making, droid making, droids will go take over worlds and stuff like that. So
James, it all goes back to taxation on trade routes.
Right. I was going to say that sounds like there's a robust conversation to be had there about episode 1.
Right.
Yep.
We'll save it.
Right.
They're basically anti-taxers. Yeah. They're basically yeah.
We lost
Party
Linda.
for the galaxy far, far away.
I don't know if her laptop, I saw her like closing the laptop and then she was gone. So I don't know if she just ran out of battery or something.
It's like the version of the Boston Tea Party, right?
Yeah, it goes from Tea Party Boston.
It's all about taxes, really. The Stamp Act and all that.
During the original
any
trilogy
other
era, you never thought about taxes. It didn't come up. It was just a self-contained story of those 3 films.
Yeah.
But then when it came to the prequels, trying to fit in that story in with the existing story, it left the viewer with a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So thankfully, we have things like Clone Wars that kind of compartmentalized that and was able to
Fill in the gaps, basically.
Fill in some gaps, and now there's even further gaps that we're getting told with the Tales of the Jedi.
Yep.
Well, I'm excited for us to do more episodes of these. I think that perhaps our next one is going to be, is it the next episode of Tales of Jedi, or are we doing episode 1? What are you guys thinking? What are you guys feeling like?
I think we should probably continue on with these because you've got.
I really like Tales of the Jedi.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, Tales of the Jedi for me, especially getting to really fill in the gaps from the 2 characters that we got in there,
Sure.
and how stuff fills in. I mean, especially in not to spoil a future episode, but I mean, one of them answer the most important question in all of Star Wars: who the heck was Sifo Dyas?
Yeah.
He was a typo. But you
have
to tune
in
in
terms of
to a future
the context of the story, we actually get some answers there.
Yes.
Well, cool.
Awesome. Well, very nice. We'll appreciate everyone being here for our first episode. Hopefully you all out there in the internet world will tune in for our next episode of Binging the Force here with the Rocky Mountain Fan Force. So if you haven't already, you see below us here, there's our link on Facebook where you can find Rocky Mountain Fan Force, and smash that like and subscribe button to Binging the Force on YouTube. So until we see you again, may the Force be with you.
Bye, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. See y'all next time.